Hi, it's Maria. Ooh, I better turn up the volume. 1 second. Oops. Oh, you know what? Okay, I think that's good. Okay, thanks. Oh, it's like after 1 o'clock in the morning, and I just took a hot shower, and it's like burning up in here. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I couldn't fall asleep, and I thought, I wanted to do a really special message for you. And so today we're going to talk about those life-changing, double whammy, ridiculous, over-the-top, horrific events that just seem to like come out of nowhere. Like an earthquake, that shakes our very foundation, our world, and leaves us in rubble. Remember those kind? And then here's the kicker. Those are the experiences that are perfectly orchestrated by the divine for our greatest life ever. I mean, it's quite the dichotomy, isn't it? Because you think, oh, well, we're being destroyed on one part of it, but then the other part is that we're actually being rebuilt in a better way for our long-term happiness, yes, and progress. So it's our destiny that I'm talking about, those lightning bolt moments that shockingly come from the heavens out of nowhere to strike us and absolutely paralyze us at times. And all we can do is mutter, help. We've all had them, and to some degree and on some level. And we as humans know that life on planet Earth is not meant to be all sunshine and roses, even though, wouldn't that be fun? But I guess it might get old in the end, really, because, we're here to expand. We're here to overcome our trials after trials, after more trials that show us the way to becoming better than who we were yesterday, and not nearly as good as we show up tomorrow. That's kind of nice, don't you think? As humans, we can become stuck when it comes to manifesting our good. After all, many of us live in fear, when fear is nothing but an illusion. Or we live in survival when we're meant to thrive. Or we live in lack when there really is plenty. All we have to do is flip the light switch. And so you say, oh, come on, Maria, you don't know about my life. And I say to you, life is not meant to torture us. It's all about our perspective. For one person's torture can be another person's blessing. That's nice. Life is like a roller coaster, and I hate roller coasters. I get so scared. I won't go on one. And it's not a kiddie roller coaster, but a ride so extreme and so and such a white knuckle ride, that it will literally take your breath away. And so here you are. Many of you are facing health issues that can literally bury you, financial issues that can literally starve you, and relationship issues that can literally isolate you and push you to the brink of not being able to face another day alone. We've all been there, to each and every one of those scenarios. So what if those very things are perfectly orchestrated in your life to temper you, to polish you, to make you stronger and make you better and make you more resilient and show you who you truly are and why you are taking up space on this earth plane when there are millions, if not billions, of other souls who would gladly take your place to experience life here in physicality on this third rock from the sun. Think of it. How have the world events, pandemic, and all its fallout affected you? Well, let me tell you, I was reading an article the other day. The divorce rate is through the roof. And it's because people were stuck at home with a spouse that they really didn't even know anymore, you know, because people change. But once you get settled in a comfy situation, and finances play a big role in that, people end up distracting themselves with others. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so they don't want to admit their misery. And so they stay, because we all know that change, although it's the one thing you can always count on, change is scary for some people, well, really for everyone. And then I read about the suicide rate. And that too is through the roof, because people don't know how to go within and get to know themselves. And they are frightened, they're discontent, and there's fear. And the fear is, you know, of epic proportion, because everything is just so tenuous now. There's no stability. Masks one day, no masks another day. We watch the news, or some people do, I don't, but you know, oh my gosh, what's going on here? What are we doing there? And it's just, it can just be so overwhelming that we kind of lose ourselves in all the drama and the BS, really, because some things we just cannot control. And so, so to even worry about it just seems like such a waste of our energy, that we could use healing ourselves and feeling positive about things. But when we focus on the negative, then we're really missing the boat. And because God and the universe and our Creator gifts us with so many wonderful things to help us turn our life around if we go off track. And challenges are really opportunities. Yeah, yeah. And they're just very well disguised, you know? It's like a challenge is wearing a mask, but really underneath it's an opportunity for growth, for our soul growth to it, and for our soul expansion. And really, when you think about it, there's really nothing that you can't cope with or deal with to help you become more of who you truly are and who you are meant to be. And it's more than turning lemons into lemonade, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And so some challenges can be so horrible that our bodies and our minds go into shock. And there are no words to express the trauma that every cell in our body feels on a visceral level. And so I thought today, because the title of this series of videos that I am putting out to you is called Maria Unfiltered. And so the reason it's named that is because I'm telling it all, or at least all that I feel is appropriate. But I'm going to touch on my experience, because a lot of you have read about me or have heard about me, and I must have some of the worst PR in the whole world. And so I thought I'm going to rise above it and not say anything. But you know, after a while, you just think, hey, it's time to tell the truth. It's time to come clean. And I don't know if this is like, you know, the Scorpio season and the new moon and the planetary alignments. But it's time to kind of not be afraid to show our friends and the people we care about and the people we interact with on Facebook and on other social media who we really are. Because otherwise we're really depriving not only ourselves, but we're depriving others the opportunity to get to know who we are. And so just like I'm kind of bearing myself to you, I hope you do the same. Because we can have thousands of friends, but really we don't really know one another that well at all. But anyway, I thought I would touch on my experience of losing my children. I lost both my parents, my family, all my friends, my home, everything in it, including my underwear, my panties, and my toothbrushes, and my computers, and my photos, and everything. I lost my health, my clothes, lost my writing, and I consider myself a writer because it's my passion. Haven't made any money off of it, but I enjoy it. Anyway, I lost my truth, I lost my voice, my freedom, you name it, and I lost it. Or rather, I didn't lose it. It was actually stolen from me. It was thieved from me by my family, no less. Plus, I was stalked and I was terrified. And truly, had one or two of those issues happened to me, I might have cursed the darkness, you know, but to lose everything, everywhere, no, I couldn't put my arms around what was happening. It was all too much. And I kept thinking, oh my God, this just cannot be happening to me. There had to be a higher power involved. And so I was actually as good as standing out in a rainstorm, totally naked, dripping wet, starving with nothing, not even a penny to my name. And add to that, I was defamed by friends, family, and PR firms to the point where no one would even talk to me. People I knew for years would actually cross the street to avoid me. And it was truly a nightmare of epic proportion because I couldn't figure out what I did. And it was like one jaw-dropping moment after another. And I understood none of it. And I never imagined that it was my sister and my oldest son who were the ringleaders. And my other children were involved too in kind of this tortured Kafkaesque existence, you know, that I had for so many years. And I became numb. Like I was even too numb to cry because I would become strong and I'd say, you know, no matter what, no one is going to beat me down to the point where I'm going to cry. Because my ex-husband used to say, I don't understand why you don't cry. I'm going to keep pushing you until you do. And then I would get stronger and stronger and I'd say, no, not gonna happen. So I kind of, to my own detriment, you know, I kind of put up walls. But it was the only way that I knew to keep going and to kind of be an observer of my life and not allow myself to be part of the drama. You know, I wanted to just rise above all the ridiculousness of the petty squabbles and the stupid bullshit, you know, that goes on among people. Anyway, I guess my question was, why did it happen? Sorry, I need some water. Thanks. I wanted to know, why did it happen and what was the matter with my family? I had no idea who they were anymore. And it was my sister and my son. And I used to do whatever I could to help them. And then what? One day they just all went insane? I mean, really? No, I don't think so. But I didn't understand. And so what I didn't understand was that my life was not about me. And perhaps they had to learn certain lessons. And so, you know, my life was about me and my soul growth and what I needed to become a better person, right? And so do you find that with you? When we have differences with others, sometimes it has nothing to do with us, but rather people are working on their own issues. And that's a good thing for them. Sometimes transparency is a good thing too, so that we're all on the same page. But anyway, in my case, it was all about greed, and they love my money more than they love me. And so they made a choice, and you know, there's such a thing as karmic justice, and we all receive that same energy that we put out. Even Jesus said that. So anyway, I just didn't know what I did. And again, it didn't have anything to do with me, perhaps. But until there's some type of a conversation, I'll never know. And so, anyway, I played a role in their story, and they certainly played roles in my story. And anyway, I was their target. And so at one point, I had money. I had lots of it, but somehow it all disappeared while I was on vacation. And then I received emails from the estate attorney that was my sister's neighbor and whom she hired to deal with my parents' trust to be distributed. And I had been written out of everything, including my home. And I wanted to scream and say, hey, wait, you can't do that. You cannot be changing legal documents. That's criminal. It was just a bunch of BS. But here I was with nothing, not even a pen. I mean, nothing. And then there was no money because all the accounts were emptied. And so I couldn't even buy a banana. Not even a 19-cent banana from Trader Joe's. I had nothing. And so anyway, how was I going to fight them? Because I had been so beaten down. And I went to live in a homeless shelter. And, had I not had to get up at 7 a.m., and to walk around aimlessly, actually, until late afternoon when I could get back in, I needed to rest. I needed to heal. At one point, I was sent an envelope with a check for $1,000 to not contest the will. And in the envelope was a copy of the trust instrument that they were using to steal everything from me. And apparently, attorneys and judges signed off on that document. But it was a joke. It had all been rewritten, and the signatures were forged. And my father, whose huge estate was the subject of all of this mess, his name was ridiculously misspelled. I have a copy of it. I just didn't want to make it public. But again, it's all about transparency. And so when the right authorities want to see it, I am happy to share it. But my father's name was misspelled on his own document. Can you even imagine? A man worth a fortune, and his attorneys supposedly couldn't spell his name correctly. And his last name is Hadey, like mine, and that's Hadey, and they couldn't spell it. But anyway, that kind of stunk of legal malpractice for me. But anyway, my mother's signature was not only clearly forged, but her name was missing an E at the end of it, And where my sister signed this supposed document, it didn't say she took an oath, as it did with all the other signatures. And one of my cousins supposedly was listed as a witness, but her name was also misspelled. So the clincher was where it was written that my father's two daughters, would share equally, and each would inherit 50% of his estate. And then it also said that all four of my children were beneficiaries of my 50%, and each at the right time upon, my death, they would get 25% of my estate. But on another page, it was written that three of my children, one of whose names was misspelled, and one of my sons, his middle name is Charles, and so that was misspelled. I mean, how do you misspell Charles? But anyway, and so it said that they and I were each given $1,000 only, and that my oldest son, who actually was my father's least favorite of all my children, was entitled to my 50%. I mean, really, can you imagine? So the document was a joke. And even where it asked for the attorney's signature, the one that was a neighbor of my sister in Florida, he had someone else sign the document. And so I suppose his fear of disbarment perhaps kept him from totally doing the ridiculous, even though by that point, I think he was way beyond help. But talk about crimes, you know, obviously this is not a new concept, and which is to use the legal system to destroy innocent people and to frighten them into submission. And so it seemed that there may have been dozens of crimes involved in the thieving of my inheritance, which obviously included the forgery that I told you about, but there was also perjury, theft, there was fraud, there was identity theft. My identity had been stolen. There was breaking and entering into my condo. There was burglary, extortion, there was embezzlement, money laundering, blackmail, assault and battery, and the big M, you know what that crime is. Well, yeah. Intent to commit the big M as well. There was gang stalking. I was gang stalked. Defamation, slander, harassment, intimidation, conspiracy, cybercrime, bank fraud, wire fraud, mail fraud, investment and securities fraud, bribery, and even intellectual property crimes. Oh my God, it's true. Certainly my belief, I haven't spoken to my family. I've written them emails for years, for the last 10 years, and they're silent. So there's no communication at all. And I really did not want to get enmeshed in the legal system again. But anyway, I just wrote them again a couple days ago, and I said, look, it's time. It's time that we sat and talked about this. It's time that, you know, you come clean, because this document is a piece of shit, and it's totally illegal, and, you know, people that commit these crimes go to jail. And so let's clean this up. So anyway, at one point I interviewed 12 different law firms to fight for what was mine. And this was at the very beginning, in I think 2012 maybe. Anyway, you won't even believe what one of the attorneys told me. He said that there was not one attorney in the entire state of Florida who was allowed to take my case. And I said, what? Not allowed? Like, so tell me, just how can that be? What do we have? The president himself involved in my inheritance here? I mean, who else could render such a mandate unless this was all some really bad joke? I couldn't understand it. But I'll tell you, I became really even more frightened, as if I wasn't like a basket case to begin with. But I became even more frightened because I was being watched, and I was stalked, and I was microphoned and videotaped everywhere I went. And every new person I met would start off being very friendly and, you know, like a normal type of interaction. And then all of a sudden people would go silent. And what someone actually confessed to me is they said that they would be paid a lot of money from my estate to shun me, to ignore me, and to isolate me, so that I would suicide, so that I would feel so alone, and so that I'd feel so, you know, so horrible about myself that I wouldn't survive. And so I guess that kind of really, it helped me because I understood a little more, and that gave me actually more impetus to stand firm in my convictions, because I wasn't going to get bullied by a bunch of criminals, right? And so even though I shook like a leaf and my health, you know, suffered, my stress level was over the roof. I knew though that that I had truth on my side, and that my parents and grandparents didn't work their entire lives, 2 generations, to amass a fortune that they left to my father's two daughters and my mother's two daughters. And so I wanted to know who was behind this, because planes would fly overhead. They'd fly very low over where I was at odd hours, you know. Police cars would seemingly drive by at different times. And I mean, yeah, it was as if I felt as if I were being like labeled some kind of a hardened criminal, but I think it was just harassment and intimidation. And I think, you know, I'm not blaming the people that did that, because I think they just do what they're ordered to do. But I wanted to know who was behind all this. And I didn't think my sister or my son had that kind of clout, you know. But anyway, I knew I was on someone's shit list. I just didn't know whose. And so it was most difficult to brush everything off as coincidence, because maybe it was and maybe it wasn't. But anyway, there was more, where I witnessed violent crimes, but I'm just not going to go there now. That's not something I feel that is appropriate for me to discuss. Anyway, I was dazed and I was outraged. And the person I was dating and living with from Brazil, that I met in Brazil, he wasn't Brazilian, he was a California boy, guy. Anyway, he was shocked and angry and resentful. And he lost his things in my condo when my sister changed the locks on my home. And so he blamed me. Sorry, I need some water. It's nearly 2 o'clock in the morning in California. Anyway, so he blamed me and couldn't wait to run as far away from me as possible, and to run as far away from the entire mess, because he said, he's like, I don't want to be with anybody who has such an insane family, right? And so, as if that was contagious. But anyway, I could understand it. But in the end, he ended up, you know, he hung me out to dry too. But that's okay, I could understand. I don't know if situations were reversed, you know, if I could have put up with all that he had put up with as we actually kind of ran cross country, because we were stalked and followed. We even knew where the PIs were, and they would sit across like the tables when we'd go have breakfast or at restaurants, or, you know, the same familiar faces. You know, they'd sometimes switch cars and stuff, but we got pretty good at figuring out who was tailing us. But still, that's a real creepy thought, and we just didn't know why. Anyway, I couldn't make sense of any of it, and you know, I like happy, really. I like smiles and laughter and giggles. I like red wine and chocolate. I like kindness and generosity and truth. I like flowers and plants and trees and dogs and cats and squirrels and bees. And that rhymes, oh my gosh. And I like to hear birds chirping and singing, and crows and ravens and roosters crowing. Yeah. And so when darkness seemed to envelop me and cloak every relationship I had, I couldn't do much. I couldn't do anything really other than just throw up my arms to the heavens, you know, and say, okay, God, well, obviously this is your battle, because I'm not equipped for this one. You know, I've done what I can do, and there's nothing more. But just try to stay sane in an obviously insane world. I couldn't get a job because my phone was cloned. And so every phone call that I made, every appointment that I made, every person I reached out to was then contacted. Stay away from her. We'll pay you. Or it was a setup. Try to get to know her, you know. And then try to steal her writing or do this or do that. It was really sick. It was really bizarre. And I didn't have a place to go. I was broke. I was homeless, and I was numb. And I was abandoned and shunned by everyone and everything. But what was worse, again, I'll repeat it, was that I had no idea what was the reason, other than since my inheritance was thieved, obviously the thieves didn't want me telling anybody about it. And so it was, to kind of push me over the edge, to make me afraid. And, they were successful, because at some point I just said, well, I'm not talking. In fact, I'll tell you, one of my friends said, let's go to the top of a mountain so you can scream, because you have so much pent-up energy, and your throat chakra, is so closed. But I went to the top of a mountain, and I opened my mouth, and nothing came out. I was like, I couldn't speak, because I guess I had been so afraid that if I spoke, something really horrible was going to happen to me, even worse than what was happening to me on a daily basis. Anyway, I trembled, and I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I was hungry, I was poor, but hey, I was really rich. but I couldn't make sense of that one, I had a treasure chest that was so close, I could almost touch it, but so far that I couldn't touch it. And I had food that was so close that my mouth was watering, and yet it was so far that I had hunger pains and I was starving. So it was just, talk about an insane life. It was, and I would pray, and I'd ask, why, God, why? Why is this happening to me? And what did I do to deserve this? Was this karma? Was I a bad person in this life? Was I a bad person in a past life? What's the story? I didn't get it. And I thought I was kind and considerate and caring, and I loved people, and I even loved the people that had done all this to me. I mean, they were my family and my children, of course. I mean, you can have an estranged sister, and I was estranged from her for many years. We are polar opposites and never really got along. But I was a great mom of 4 beautiful babies, and a great wife, even to a man who didn't love me and told me the day after the wedding that he wasn't exactly into women. And he married me for my money. And I thought, oh my God, there's another one. So it's kind of a recurring theme. So that must be part of my karmic path. It's to overcome attracting people who didn't want me for me, but wanted me for what I had, which I never even thought about it, really. I didn't I wasn't wearing a sign saying, oh, this is what I have, But anyway, so when I was quiet, and I wrote, and I exercised, and I liked to read and spend time with my children and my family, and I had tons of friends, and thought I had a great life. But anyway, it's been now 10 years since my parents died, and not only I'm probably more surprised than anyone that I've survived, and that I'm actually loving my life for all the things that I endured that allowed me to find my strength, because I am not the person I was when this first began, and I was like, oh my gosh, oh, they're here, oh, now what am I going to do? I couldn't see the forest for the trees, and I didn't have the wherewithal to figure out what was going on. Plus, in the meantime, 2 years ago, a Greyhound bus driver closed that damn heavy steel door on my face and head on the right side, and then the door kind of catapulted me to the side of the bus, where I hit the left side of my face and head and my entire body, and then I collapsed. And so that set me back several IQ points for months, if not years, for I needed a lot of healing. But given that my assets were all stolen, and there were other plots and plans to get rid of me, do I believe that that was just some random occurrence and he was just, an idiot that pushed the close the door button right when at the time I was about to get on that bus? Or was there something more involved? I'll let you think about that one. But anyway, I ended up living in a car for 9 months because I needed darkness. I needed quiet to heal of a traumatic brain injury, and I didn't have a home, and no one called, and no one even cared. And given my circumstances, there wasn't even a doctor. This was during the pandemic. There wasn't even a doctor who would help me. And so, and I couldn't handle, it was like during Halloween, when kids put those boxes over their heads and everything's and that's what it felt like to me. I don't know how many of you have ever had a brain injury or been around someone who sustained a traumatic brain injury, but everything is muffled. It's like you have these huge earmuffs, and you want darkness and you want quiet, and because there's just too much stimulation. And so that allowed me to become very, very comfortable with myself. And so, many human beings live their life to the end of their days, just kind of going along without questioning why their life unfolded the way it did. Yet with my situation being so extreme, I had to at least try to find an answer, right? I had to remember that we are all divine beings. We are souls. We are all here for a purpose, yes? And that purpose is to experience life to the extent that we can expand and perfect our soul. And so the point of my going into all of other things that I've experienced as far as this part of my life is concerned is not, it's not a pity party. It is to explain that the experiences that at one time we view to be just horrific, we can reframe them because they have actually made us become the people that we now are. And without those experiences, I was a very sheltered little girl. I was very coddled and loved and taken care of and everything. And then I was like just standing on a corner, naked with nothing, and had to learn to survive. And so no one is as surprised as I am that I was able to get through all that and live with all kinds of people in homeless shelters and get to know them. And I actually interviewed them and wrote and made a video called A National Crisis because I thought maybe that was my calling. Maybe that's why I was there. I was trying to figure out what that whole experience was about, other than developing so much compassion that I would have never experienced. I would have never experienced these people had it not been for my destitution and for my joining them in a homeless shelter. And I learned so much about homeless people. And sure, they didn't lose millions in courts and by family and stuff, but they had their own stories because everything's relative, And so anyway, that I needed that experience perhaps to make me a more well-rounded person, and maybe my soul was craving that experience, so that while I was still on this earth plane, I really got to see and interact with so many wonderful people that, had it not been for that, I would have never even spoken to them. I never even really looked at a homeless person, or, sometimes I'd give them money and everything, but I would never sit down with them and say, hey, tell me your story. What's going on with you? How can I help you? Other than, giving you money. And so, that was a wonderful thing. And so I'm very grateful for many experiences like that, where we're pushed to the edge, and we're pushed to an edge where we've never been before, and where we, under ordinary circumstances, would, shiver and shake. But instead, we can transform any experience to be a very beneficial and rewarding experience. And so, let's see, what else can I tell you? We all share common themes, even though for me it was the legal system that served to destroy my family. And that system has destroyed countless others. I mean, how many people do we know, or have we heard of, even if we don't know them, but we know of them, who are sitting on death row, and eventually through DNA and whatever type of forensic information they get, those people were innocent, and yet they've spent so many years of their life, paying for a crime that they never committed. So the legal system is not necessarily, from my perspective, and I went to law school, but the legal system is not necessarily about justice. The legal system is really, from, I don't want to get in trouble for saying this, but I don't really care because it's the truth. The legal system is all about who's your advocate, like how good is your lawyer, and how well respected is he, and yeah, that's what I think. Anyway, I even put out a YouTube video on the legal system and how we can transform that, and that's on YouTube and also on my Facebook account too, and it's called My Dear Mr. President, Letting Love Lead the Way. And so anyway, sometimes, we're like those carnival little chickies, where you shoot darts at them, and just as soon as one goes down, then it pops right back up again, well, we can follow suit. There's nothing that really can hold us down if we have the resolve to become better and to rise above anything that's thrown our way. We not only are entitled to a good life, but we're entitled to a great life, and a life that can fulfill all of our dreams. But first, we must get out of our own way. And so I think by my being on Facebook Live, this to me is a momentous occasion for me, because it's really the first time that I felt comfortable enough to tell the truth. There's I have another video about PR firms, and so a lot of us, I'm not sure why, but a lot of us that have gotten a lot of attention in the public, yeah, it's easy. You just throw something out there and see what sticks, and a lot of shit sticks. And so I have tremendous respect now for celebrities and all the stuff that they've gone through, with photographers chasing them, and headlines that are, just to sell publications. And so anyway, we have to do whatever it is we have to do to thrive and to heal, and just not care what anyone else thinks. As long as we're in truth and we're in integrity, that's really the only thing that matters. And so we have to speak from our heart and speak the truth with no holds barred. So I'm going to end this now, because I want this to be as short as possible. I don't know how short that is, but anyway, I wanted it to be short so that you can watch it again if you like. And there will be 2 parts to this one. It's called Our Destiny, part 1 and part 2. And so look out for it and watch for that one, where I'll tell you some more juicy tidbits about living our best life, and how my story, hopefully, you can gather some information that will help you with your own life. And so anyway, take really, really good care of yourselves, and know that I send you my very, very best. And until we meet again, I love you. Bye. Okay, where do I push this?